Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today and welcome back to my channel. I have a couple of Scenic Slimline on modern neutral background cards to share with you using brand new stamps and dies from the Waffle Flower Crafts Fall and Winter 2020 release. I am going to be using Holiday Cheese and Pumpkin House stamps and dies, and then the pattern paper background is actually from a previous release. This is the Modern Neutrals, and it is a fabulous pattern paper pad. I love that these are long and skinny, so they actually measure 5.5 by 8.5 inches, so they're going to be perfect for die cutting a slimline card base. And I'm going to be using the Simon Says stamp slimline marquee die to die cut that. So I was just kind of flipping through some of the patterns in this Modern Neutrals pattern paper pad. I die cut two different patterns. I love the white tone on tone of this. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit of distressing so this dries while I do all my coloring. It's actually going to have plenty of time to dry because I got a lot of coloring to do today. We are splattering some Lawn Fawn liquid Stardust all over this. When I tip my cards, I'm going to kind of show you the finished cards at the end of the video. When I tip this, it gives such a pretty shimmery effect that looks amazing for Christmas and Thanksgiving or Halloween, whatever you want to do, any of those holidays or just anytime. I love this liquid Stardust product. I love the little bit of shimmer and distressing it adds to these panels. Now we're going to get to the stamping and coloring, which is really the star of the show. Other than a little die cutting for the panels, everything is stamping and coloring. We're going to be stamping on some Bristol Smooth cardstock, doing a little no line coloring with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers today. I'm stamping my images with Lawn Fawn Jellyfish No Line Coloring ink, and I'm trying to make sure I have the best stamped impression impossible to start with here. I have my mug, the mouse holding his little sign, and then the cheese. I will be adding the bees. I completely forgot to stamp them, and as I got to the end of my coloring for this card and got ready to die cut these, I realized I forgot them. So I actually believe I used everything from this stamp set with the exception of a few greetings, because you get the mouse with the sign, the mug, the cheese, and the two bumblebees with the little bumblebee trail, and then lots and lots of sentiments, and you can choose what you want to use there. So I love anything from Big Bear and Bird, which is the illustrators for this set. I'm a huge fan. I'm always thrilled to get to color some of their designs, and these are no exception. So stinking cute. Everything in my card today features, or in my video today, features mice, which is kind of funny, but I love the two completely different takes on them. We've got the little mini mice coming up next. But with these, I am using a little natural gray, warm gray 2, and pale pink. In fact, that's going to be my color scheme for the mice throughout the video. I am using a ton of markers today. It's a lot of coloring, and the color combinations for each didn't really translate, you know, from a Christmas card to the fall themed card or the Thanksgiving card that I'm creating here in a second. So it's one of those opportunities to break out all of the markers, I guess. Now, it's so important when doing no line coloring, if there are areas, and there are quite a few areas in this today that require a little bit of detail with a fine tip black pen. So I've got the pole that the little cheese sign is on. I went ahead and traced that out with a black pen. We have the eye and the nose. Remember that faces are so important because you don't want to lose that detail there. My other big tip, and I've been trying to share this every time I'm doing a card, whether it's no line coloring or just regular coloring with the zigs, these are water-based, meaning if you touch anything red with a lighter marker like that light gray I used for the brim of the Santa hat, it might, well, not might, it almost always picks it up and transfers it, at least when I'm doing it. So I really highly recommend coloring in the light gray of the brim and the pom-pom first, coloring your mouse. And when you are done with anything that might be touching anything that's going to be red, then color in the red so you don't have to worry about it transferring anywhere else. The center of my little chalkboard sign I did with natural gray and light gray, and then we're going to do like a little wood border around that with mid-brown and beige. This mouse, so cute. Am I right? I mean, I don't normally say that about mice. I know every time I color them, I think I say that to you guys. But I'm not a real big fan of ever having one in the house. Knock on wood. I haven't had one here in this one. But I've only ever had like 2. But, ugh, the worst. Just the worst. But coloring them is a whole nother ball game. I love coloring them. I think they're really cute images as far as that goes. The candy cane, same thing as the Santa hat. So I did all the light gray first. Then we're doing the red stripes with carmine red and light carmine. For the hot chocolate in our little mug, I was imagining it's like hot chocolate with peppermint in it. So mid-brown and beige kind of give it that milky color. And then I really wanted to go neutral for my coffee mug because I really wanted there to be like lots of neutral with little pops of color. That was kind of my whole base for my cards today, with the scenic kind of the tone-on-tone white backgrounds and everything like that. So natural gray and light gray for the mug. And then we're going to have a great little pop of color down here near the base with our greenery and our berries. I just want to mention again, I have had this Modern Neutrals paper pad for several months, and I loved it when I got it, but I think I kind of put it, you know, where I keep my paper and forgot. I tend to gravitate towards cardstock, and I had laid out my stamps. I kind of knew I was going to do a slimline, and it's funny how that works, where you think it's, and definitely the focus is the stamped images because they're very, very cute and they are the focal point. But it's funny to me how things can kind of take a completely, you know, different turn and really steps them up. So I could have inked a background. I could have put them on a solid background with just a little bit of inking, or die cut a background, whatever it might be. But I really think this tone-on-tone pattern paper showcases both designs beautifully. And I was very specific when choosing my patterns. So this card is going to be using the little rays coming out, which probably is my favorite pattern from this paper pad. You get 4 sheets of each. I wish I got 10 of that one because it's my favorite, but that's a whole nother story. And then there's some really cute like little hexagon beehive type ones, which wouldn't those be cute with the bumblebees? Or anything, honestly. Love those, like some little squares and all kinds of geometric ones. And then the one for the pumpkin house is kind of a bokeh effect, which I really like. And I actually almost think it looks like clouds in the sky when you create the scene. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to that card there. But for me, the backgrounds here really made the cards. Oh, and I did want to mention there's a couple like different marble type backgrounds. So those are phenomenal as well. Anyway, highly, highly recommend this paper pad. It is not brand new. So if you haven't picked it up and you maybe want to, you get a ton of sheets. It's 80-pound weight. There's 36 sheets of 12 designs in the paper pad. So I'm just going to mention that here because I was really excited to kind of use that for the first time, and I can see myself using it a lot more in the future because the designs are great. I went ahead and did all of my cheese in the same color. You could totally do like a little wrapping around the cheese. I think that would be really fun. Even to kind of maybe do like a little bit more of a brie look for the cheese, whatever you want to do there. I used, it's kind of a funny color combination, light brown and vanilla. I was looking for something that wasn't orange or yellow. I was looking for something a little bit more natural looking. And so I played around with my marker color combinations, which you can kind of see there on the other half of this sheet of paper, and came up with this, and I really like it. That light brown is a go-to for me for so many things. And then to add interest to the greenery, I'm using a couple of color combinations. So we've got our more olivey color combination, which is mid-green and olive green. And we have our more bright green color combination, which is green, light green, and yellow green. I really think they work together really nicely here as far as adding interest. And then I kind of imagined the cheese sitting on like parchment-y type of paper. This is brick beige and a blender. That's it to create that. I wanted it to be very neutral, very light to keep the focus on the rest of the images. And then the cute little tag here, it actually has some detail on it, but I really felt like I lost the detail when I did the no line coloring. For me, that's not a huge deal. You could always draw it back in if you want to. I did not. I just left the tag. It's going to just be a little like craft type tag on here. Again, keeping it very neutral with anything that isn't kind of a focal point, such as greenery, berries, the Santa hat, the peppermint stick, or candy cane, things like that. And then our bumblebees will have a little bit of color to them as well, which the bumblebees, I want to mention, so stinking cute because they have little Santa hats on them, which I think is fun. Great addition. If you are a big fan of Big Bear and Bird like I am, you are going to want this stamp set because it is phenomenal. And probably can be used with many of the others that you have. So really, really fun. You can see that I'm kind of working little areas at a time, which is really how I do with anything, but especially no line coloring. Sometimes it's hard to tell what is what without that black outline. And so I'm really just kind of moving slow, going through those images. I even added some little holes here to my cheese, which they're really dark right now, but I'm going to go back over and blend those out just a tad. Really kind of fun and cute. And then for the string around the cheese, again, black fine tip pen. We're just going to draw that detail back in. I love these mono multi-liners. I use them all the time. I think they come in a 3-pack. I know they come in a 3-pack with 3 different widths, 1, 3, and 5. And I use them all. In fact, I used 2 different ones on this card because I really felt like the pole that the little cheese sign was on was thick, and I didn't want to have to draw over it a million times with the super thin pen. Then we got our little tag that we're going to color in. And you can kind of see that there's detail at the end of the tag, which would have been cute, but I really lost that when I colored over it, and it had started to fade. It was taking me long enough to color that no line ink was fading just a little bit, and so I was losing the detail. I probably should have stamped maybe a few individual images at a time. It's kind of a good deal that I stamped the bees later. That way, because they're so tiny, I could really see the detail because I colored them immediately after stamping. And look how cute. I love these little bumblebees. They're so happy and fun. So just doing a combination of black and yellow stripes, of course. That's bright yellow and natural gray and warm gray too. With the only real additional color I pulled in is the pale violet for their wings. And then they've got these cute little Santa hats, which is light gray, carmine red, and light carmine. We're going to do both of those the same and die cut them. There is a coordinating die for the bumblebee trail, but I'm actually going to stamp mine directly on the card background instead of stamping and die cutting. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit because we almost have everything ready to start pulling it all together. Now, sentiments. Whoops, dropped something. The sentiments today, I decided to incorporate them into the images. So we're going to stamp Merry Christmas on a couple of the cheese pieces here in the design. Remember, there are lots of sentiments in here. There is hello, joy, love, with. So you can kind of build a lot of different sentiments. And then as far as what can fit on the sign, cheese to share, holiday cheers, Merry Christmas, from me to you, which is what I used, and thank you. You could use any of those words except I would say Christmas is probably too long on the sign. So definitely a lot of different options here. That was stamped and embossed in white on the sign because I wanted it to look like a chalkboard sign. I noticed though that my Y didn't look like it transferred very well, even the O a little bit. So I'll just take a white pen and fix that. So now that we have our sentiments, it's going to be Merry Christmas from me to you. I have it all laid out. Gonna kind of make sure I like the placement of everything. You will notice that that great marquee that we used to die cut this panel, I cannot suggest this enough as a fantastic basic. This is from Simon Says Stamp. It was part of their stamp timber. And then I'm using the slimline nested rectangles behind it, which coordinate with the marquee. So I use the solid die back behind. I die cut some red cardstock. So that's what shows through all of those little marquee die cut holes there, which I love. I love that little contrast of red little dots going all the way around, but it's still that white on white, and then it's going to go on a white card base. So it adds just a perfect little frame that I personally think is super interesting without being overwhelming. Now I am positioning all of the die cuts on my card. I am using foam adhesive to adhere them. I love a little bit of dimension. Just kind of pops it up off the background, makes that the first place that your eye looks on the card. You can see I stamped some little bumblebee trails right on the background. I did that first. Just used an acrylic block and my black VersaFine ink. Then we're going to take this great red cardstock. This is Hero Art's Cherry cardstock. And we're going to pop that right behind. I'm keeping my adhesive kind of in the center. We don't want it at the edge so that it, you know, sticks through any of those little holes and maybe catches any dust or whatever the case may be. Now we are going to add finishing details. That's going to be some little hearts on the mug. These are just little teeny tiny clay hearts. You probably see me use these all the time. These are from Trinity Stamps. Love, love, love those. Then I've got some little snowflake sequins that I'm scattering throughout. I know they're tone on tone, but I promise I love the little bit of detail that adds. Then we have some little gold star confetti that we are scattering throughout our card background. That's going to add a nice little touch of color as well. And then in the center of our snowflakes, I am adding some honey gold glitter Nouveau crystal drops just to kind of finish off the snowflakes. And I like the look of a little finished center in each of those. The last thing we're going to do is take this whole panel and attach it to a white slimline card base. That measures 3.5 by 8.5 inches. I trim a standard sheet of cardstock to 7 by 8.5 inches, score it in half, and then go ahead and place this panel on. It is slightly smaller than the 3.5 by 8.5 size, so it's going to leave a nice white border all the way around your slimline card. So there is the finished panel for our first card, and now we're going to do the pumpkin house card. The great thing about the pumpkin house is it really creates that little scene, and the images are so stinking tiny. So I am going to work fairly quickly, although it doesn't seem quick because it took a while to color. I stamped part of my images, and then I'm going to go ahead and come back and stamp the rest. I'm also going to leave out a lot of the background work for this card because it is exactly the same as the first card, and I'll assemble these off camera. I tried to leave as much of the coloring in as possible. However, I colored a couple of the trees when I stamped additional images later. I'm going to go straight for the pumpkin house first. These are teeny tiny, so it is maybe a little hard to see the outline of everything, but I love how the no line coloring looks on this. I'm using brown, light brown, and vanilla for the pumpkin. and then mid brown and beige for the top of the pumpkin and the door on this little pumpkin house. So I think it's so cute that this little pumpkin house has mice, and there are some little bunnies too. I think I only used mice. Yeah, I did. I used the mice for the card today. I tried to use most of the images from this set. I don't think I used the little mushrooms, and that might be about it. The mushrooms and the bunnies. And then the Happy Thanksgiving banner that the two mice are holding, what I went ahead and traced out first with my black fine tip pen, that's the sentiment on my card. So everything else is a scene, and it's this teeny tiny scene. And what I love about the slimline style is I'm really able to use a lot of this and to use multiple images. We're going to stamp multiple trees to add to our little scene along the bottom of the card. And that's really special here, but I'm taking my time with the pumpkin house because it's definitely the focal point. I mean, how stinking cute is that little pumpkin house? Love this so much. We're going to do a couple of different colors of pumpkins. So this is kind of my more standard orange pumpkin. And then we're going to do a little white pumpkin. There's a little individual white pumpkin here in the set. We're going to color that in a different color just for fun. There's an apple. I'm going to color that. There's some acorns. So very, very fun. As I was mentioning earlier in the video, this is a little bit more of that jewel tone fall colors type of color combination. So where our first card was a lot more Christmassy color and a lot of neutrals with those big bold pops of color, this card has a lot of color too, but I needed completely different color combinations for the most part for that fall and Thanksgiving type of feel. What I love is you don't have to make this a Thanksgiving card. This could be any type of fall card if you wanted to. There is a give thanks sentiment banner in this, so you can use that. It comes with a coordinating die just like the Happy Thanksgiving does. Or you can use some other sentiment. Whatever you want to use. I think this is so cute. I love the little mice decorating their pumpkin house, adding the little leaf garlands and things. Even the little mouse standing here in front of the door, hanging up a leaf garland. So they're out decorating for fall, which is so cute. The chair that she's standing on, so small and detailed that I went ahead and traced it out. I'll add a little bit of color like to the seat cushion, but otherwise I traced it out, as well as the doorknob and the little lock there on the house. We're going to draw out the ladder. We want to make sure as we're coloring in the mice that we're adding in the nose and eye on all of these, so we're not losing all of that detail because they are super teeny tiny. The windows here, I colored in, I wanted it to look like there was light coming, and so I added color with bright yellow and yellow. And then I'm using a little deep blue and haze blue for the window shutters. And I liked that, but I felt like I was losing some of the detail for the window panes. And I contemplated what to do there, if I wanted to use the black pen or the blue marker. And I opted to do the blue marker. You just kind of want to make sure that that base layer is nice and dry first. And then we'll just kind of trace that out and add in all of that great detail. And then make sure and go back and color in any of the leaves. So I'm kind of coloring in the leaf garland along the top of the pumpkin and the one the mouse is holding at the same time. Very, very cute. This definitely probably took me the most time, this little mouse house, because we've got the mouse on the ladder, we've got the mouse in front of the door, and then all these little bits and pieces, and I'm moving colors quite a bit. Briefly, I listed the colors for the most part, and then I'm going to stop here in a minute just because it's the repetition over and over. As always, I have listed them out on my blog as well. So if you need to see them a little bit slower, or you want to, you know, visit that again and see what color combinations I used, you can find that there. I used the most color combinations I used in this design for the red, deep red and pale rose. For orange, I would use light brown and vanilla. For the green, I used mid green and olive green. And then for blue, deep blue and haze blue. That is the majority of the color combinations for the fall theme. There's also going to be some mustard in the blender, and that is for the last tree. And I did not share that on camera, but that is what I used there. And then for the mice, that's natural gray and warm gray too with pale pink, the same as I used before for the first card. Mid brown and beige is what I used for the trunks of the trees here. And then it's just kind of flipping back and forth between those color combinations for the most part, as far as, you know, the clothing for the mice and things like that. I will say, I think I didn't color the apple on camera because I colored it, and I colored it with the same reds that I used for the first card, and I did not like it. So I actually re-stamped it and colored it with deep red, pale rose, mid green, olive green, and then my mid brown and beige. So about 6 colors there, and we added in all of that for the apple. We got some little leaves that we'll also stamp that I didn't color on camera, but those are going to be the same color combination that I have shown. And then I will be sharing that other pumpkin here in a minute, which I really was excited about that color combination because I think it's a good one and definitely interesting for a nice little variation. And then the trees, I know I mentioned, I ended up stamping 3 of those, and that's really going to help balance out everything on the card and really give it that kind of like little foresty feel, like little pumpkin house. Here's that brick beige with the blender, and then mid brown and beige for the stem of the pumpkin. Love this pumpkin. I think it turned out really, really cute. And I tried to leave some of those lines and not overly blend it. And then the acorns are mid brown and beige. Just a couple of colors, but you really can get some nice results with that. And I think, again, these are a great addition. And you can see that apple, the first one I colored, not good, right? It does not match at all. I mean, it's super cute and would work for something else, but not it doesn't go with the rest of the colors. If I had changed my color palette, it would be fine. We're going to go ahead and color in the rest of this really quick, and then as soon as I have everything colored and die cut, I am going to assemble everything and adhere it with foam adhesive to my card background, much like I did the first card, and then I will walk you through both cards, and I'll show them to you, the finished designs, as well as the stamp sets that I used. If you want to see everything that you get in those stamp sets, I will show you those here in just a second as well. The tails on the mice is another thing that I added a fine tip black pen to. Trying to think if there's anything else. There was quite a bit on this card. I don't always do a ton of black pin detail, but I had to for this card. I don't know if you guys, if you already have Waffle Flower stamps, you probably know this, but here probably about a year and a half ago, they went to not having their dies connected, meaning you do not have to cut them apart. They come already ready to go. It is probably one of my favorite things ever. I'm a huge fan of Spellbinders, and they don't ever do that either. Their dies all come already ready to go, and Waffle Flower does too, and not very many companies do that, and I think it's phenomenal. So if you do not love cutting your dies apart, just wanted to mention real quick, they come ready to go. So none of those little nasty edges that you have to take your trimmers to, which is amazing. I have injured myself more times than I can count. All right, let's take a look at the finished cards, you guys. Here are the finished designs. Look at that little pumpkin house scene. How cute is that? When I tip it at an angle, you can really see that sparkle from the liquid stardust, all those little gold stars I added to the sky, and then of course the no-line coloring and the fun scene that you get with the pumpkin house images. Oh, I just think it's so much fun. I love the release. So good. And then the Big Bear and Bird, the holiday cheese set is next. Oh, and here's that pumpkin house stamp set. I said I would show that to you. I wanted you to see that. So this is the holiday cheese card again. I know I showed it to you a minute ago, but look at that sparkle when I tip it at an angle. And of course the stamp set that I used to create the card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these Scenic Slimlines on Modern Neutrals cards featuring brand new Waffle Flower stamps and dies from the Fall/Winter 2020 release. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another card featuring Waffle Flower that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.